Okay, my outstanding friends, we're going to take a trip back in the past. Now, what am I talking about? Well, this right here is what they call columnar basalt, and they say it comes from a volcano and it creates these patterns due to the way the crystals solidify. I said, no, absolutely not. It's a tendon from a giant creature, and these are the patterns. This area right here is somewhere right down around in here where you have the really good patterns, and then they break up into not quite so good, and then they're not good at all really, and then they go into the tiny fibrils. I think we're right in this section where these are the bundles, so you can see the bundles, and then they break off into these smaller little bundles. See, this is one of those tiny bundles. I mean, it's just ridiculous, but it's just true. And then they go from here. If you followed it down, you'd get into a smaller one at the end there. And if you followed that one down, you'd get into little hair-looking ones with balls on the end of them. And that's how the whole thing anchors. Now, I've studied this for a very long time, and I was frustrated for many years. And this just shows you how frustrated I was. I call these mud fossils. And the only one I could find was David Attenborough. And this goes back to August of 2014. And I wrote to him, and he wrote back. I was really surprised. He said, I never did anything on mud fossils, and I'm only interested in things that are millions of years old. But he was very, very nice about, I was amazed. Now, but at that point, I was so frustrated that I was contacting literally everyone on the planet that had made claims about anything about our history. And he was literally, as far as I can remember, the only one that ever returned any of the correspondence, other than to just say I was a creationist, flat earth person, and all these kind of things. They just all they wanted to do was destroy me, and they did for many years. And this goes back 7 years ago, trying to get a hold of David Attenborough, and it's still going on to this very day. So we're going to change this. It's going to have to. And I want to show you something that plays right into this. I'm telling you, manifest destiny is every day. It's just a new piece of the puzzle is falling into place. All right, this is from Facebook. This is a page called Geomorphology Rules, and then this outcrop of basalt, columnar basalt, and they talk about exactly what I just showed you. And these are the patterns, and these are the little fibrils within each one of these blocks of tendon. So somebody said for me to comment, and I did. And I said, that's tendons from giant creatures. And the creatures back then were just absolutely so big, nobody can comprehend them. So don't think that you're unusual, that you could just say, oh, it can't possibly be true. Everybody says that. And then they finally say, I just have, and my evidence is just overwhelming. Mine's all DNA certified and CAT scanned and the whole 9 yards. And my stuff, I have human beings here on my own property over 100 feet tall, well over 100 feet tall. Now, this is just going to be gigantic. And they were just literally exactly the size Enoch said. They were up to the 3,000 L's tall. And in that, an L and 3,000 of them works, in my math, works out to be about 2.5 miles tall. I know, don't tell me. But let me show you. You see this, you know what you're talking about here, tendons. Let me show you something else. But before I do that, I want to make a statement. And I don't know these people, geomorphology rules. It's the first I've ever heard of them. And the only reason is because Patrick Cody sent me a thing saying, take a look at this. Now, here's what else they have to say down here. This intrigued me. All right, this is going on about back in 2016 when Trump just got elected. And I have nothing to do with politics whatsoever. And I don't particularly care for, really tough politics. But this really struck me. As a teacher, now this is a statement made by this Dr. K. Nickel, and of the University of Utah, and it's not from the University of Utah, it's from her. But I like the way she thinks, and this was a statement they made saying they won't accept any bullying or harassment. And then, as a teacher and researcher, I will not be bought or intimidated. I will present the state of research in my field accurately, whether or not it is what the government wants to hear. I will challenge others when they lie. This is exactly what I do to academia, because they are the ones that are against reality right now, and I am going to challenge them because I feel like they are lying at this point. I will not be shy about my commitment to academic values. My academic values far exceed academia. Truth, objectivity, free inquiry, and rational debate. I will challenge others when they engage in behavior contrary to these values. That's exactly what I have done and will continue to do. Now, she is, as an administrator, I will defend my students, faculty, and non-academic staff. Well, I appreciate that. And this was a response to Trump and all his, they thought they were going to make them stop teaching certain things, you know, and a lot of it was about religion and so forth. And again, I have nothing to do with that. I am a material scientist. I just showed you what they are talking about right here. Right there. Tendons, and here's where they are also found. And like I said, Enoch, who was a biblical creature in the ancient past, he was talking to God, they said. And right now, I have no reason to believe that was anything but true. All right, this isn't the best shot, but this is the abrupt transition of basically where they break from the tendon snaps in abrupt transitions. And they're laid out here, and they're really, literally blocky as that. It's absolutely amazing. You see that? That's where the little straps of tendon come up, and they meet literally a glue that glues them to muscle. All right, this is Devil's Tower. That's it right there. And that's that wrinkle zone where the tendons rupture. And these are all the fibrils, which are tendon fibrils. All right, I'm going to leave it at this. This is, I believe it's Utah. It's out in Utah National Park, and this is literally a tendon strap, and that's one of the tendon balls. They were all over these balls, and there was a strap going from here to another one, probably to this one. Now, let me show you what they look like in us. It's that same tendon mat with a strap running down that the guy was walking on to one of the balls, and the ball was still in its holder. Now this one's ripped out. That's an injury. So that's how big they are in us. That's microscopic. And there's more to this picture about these little tabs and how they're broken off right here. And you see, because they used all this stuff for construction materials long ago, right after the flood, because it was still wet, and that's how they made all those walls, and that's why these little bumps are on those walls. They cut these tendons in slabs and left the little bumps sticking out. Now these are the flat slabs of tendon. These still have the little bumps sticking out. This looks like a wall that they were testing to see what the best way to deal, how deep to scrape into them, leave them sticking straight out, or scrape down to and rip all that stuff down. I don't know. It looks like it to me they were doing something like that there. But these are all the little bumps. They cut these slabs, and they were wet when they cut them, and there was machinery here that did it. You see that? Now think about this very carefully. These are the slabs they cut, and they built these walls. You see this outside edge right here, and this outside edge? This is how wide this platform was. And when I say platform, this must have come out of the sky. They didn't drive this up. This was wet. When obviously it was wet, this sunk into there. It looks to me like they dropped it out of the sky right in there, and they anchored it up here with a little extra little plate that stuck down in, and it was on the sloping down, and they used this to cut in and make these slabs. How they got them out of here, I don't know. But that's clearly some kind of a vehicle. Now, can these geology people deal with this? I haven't had not one of them yet. Now, this could be a whole different story. If she's really dedicated to this principle of open, honest, academic endeavor to uncover truth, well, then that's the person I want to see, and I would love to talk to her, and I am going to try to contact her, and I hope this it is truly her motivation. If that's true, God bless her, because that'll be one of a kind. And she may be. And that's what I'm hoping. Thank you. I love you all. All right, this is where we find out who is realistic and who is just spouting academic values that mean listen to us and don't question. This, my friends, is exactly the same columnar basalt they're talking about. This is Devil's Tower. It is a foot from a giant. This is what they call the wrinkle zone. They break flat as a pancake because that is the abrupt transition where it happens in surgery. They know about this. There's an abrupt transition where they break when they get overstressed. And then what happens is because a tendon is under tension all the time, it's tight. And then after that, the muscles do their movement. But this is always nice and tight, holding you to the bones and to whatever the tendons anchor into. When they snap, they create a wrinkle zone. That's it right there. And they're on, in the surgery, they see the exact same thing in surgery. Now, there will be places in here where there's red spots and you're going to see some moss growing and everything. It's growing on blood from an artery or a vein that has leaked in certain places. There's not much blood in tendons, but there is some. And that's where you're going to find this kind of stuff. Hold on a second. Let me show you some more shots of this. Now, this was put up by some academics. They put a root structure underneath Devil's Tower and said that they had found it and all this to make it silly. This is the fleshy part of the body after it fell over at Devil's Tower. And these layers are not sedimentation layers. These layers are flesh layers. And I've seen it, the crosshatch and everything of the muscles and so forth. It's all there. Here's a little perspective for you. Here's our Statue of Liberty, 152 feet. 597 feet, Statue of Unity in India. That's pretty big. 1,267 feet. I mean, it's like this thing, it could be right about here. It's just the way it was. That was what was written. What was written is time to reread it and think about it a little deeper, because I have, and it's scary. And there's going to be something comes after this life, as far as I'm concerned now. I never thought about it before, but now I think about it a lot. All right, this is some of the fleshy area after it fell over. And I believe this might have been where the other foot was. Usually what I think I have found is one of them will be pushed down into the mud trying to lift the other one up. If there's one that's way up at the top, the other one is usually down in like this might be the calf of the leg because it's trying to push itself out of the mud. That's what happened. This was a long duration flood. These guys would have been standing miles tall, and they would have been there for a very long time in this watery situation, but they would have finally drowned or starved to death. Or Velikovsky says the ocean's boiled, and that's very, very possible, because everything that I have found looks like it had been parboiled, and a lot of body parts have come apart according to what they call fascia. In other words, this is a bone, and it's a bone. Even though you're not going to see any bone, there is no white bone here. This is a mud fossil, and this separated, and they all did along a fascia plane. And that could be your skin, it could be the membrane of an organ, it could be the membrane of tendons, it could be or feathers, like this goose head, this feathers. Anything that had collagen, and they all have collagen, these things. They're all wrapped in a coating, and when they were boiled or died or got invaded by nucleophilic substitution, and that's the end result, is nucleophilic substitution, where molecules, certain, mostly transition metals, will move chemistry back and forth until it stabilizes. If it's in the water long enough, and if it's in the correct pHs. That's the key. And I think being boiled ahead of time would really help to do it. Now, I made mud fossils, but I did them just in salty waters, and I actually added a little bit of electric current. and it worked within less than a year. They were pretty good and solid mud fossils. So it's not hard to do. But you have to, there's a whole ton of stuff you could do with the chemistry, because a lot of these things were going to be in just bloody areas. Other ones are going to be in completely solid water areas. Other ones are going to be in acids and salts and different chemistry, a lot of heavy transition metals near lungs and hearts, and anywhere was a dense amount of blood. Even like, I have one here, hold on, it's around here, yeah, here it is right here. This is actually an opal heart. And when you say opal, you say, oh no, opals are all different colors. No, this is a water opal. Let me show you what a heart looks like if it was not turned. This is a water opal. Now, I can show you some. Well, let me show it. All right, now take a look at this, all these heartstrings and the ventricle walls and all that. Well, that's this right here. That is actually a chamber. It's very hard for you to see, I'm sure. But it's basically the same sort of stuff we're looking at here. All right, now, why is this? I mean, it almost looks like this. It really does. But it's filled with silicates. And that is a silicon, basically, quartz. And the reason that happens is it was in a certain chemistry that invaded it and substituted what was in there with the quartz. Because biological stuff can transition, like I said, because in you know, you're not a tiniest bit stable. Every molecule in your body is in transition right now. It's giving up oxygen, it's taking on oxygen, it's giving up waste, it's taking on glucose and all kinds of different minerals and metals and things. That's what makes you run, and it's through the blood that does that. And it happens with these transition metals. Now let me show you what those transition metals look like in another heart, which was opalized, but not a water opal. This is unusual. Water opals are kind of unusual. Usually when you find an opal, it's colorized because it has the transition metals. Because a heart is just saturated with blood, which is all transition metals, basically. All right, these are blood colors. These are the ones that are in your blood. And they run through your blood, and they have all these oxidation states. That means they call them metal complexes, transition metal complexes. And they're very sophisticated, and they have little pinchers on the end of them that can pinch molecules that have certain number of extra or not enough electrons. And they'll grab a hold of them, and they'll bring them to another place that says, oh, I got enough electrons to take that from you. It's okay, here it is, and boom, gone. And then it goes into your waste system, or it goes into your nutritional system, or it feeds the bacteria, or whatever it does. But you have to get blood moving through your body with all of these different oxidation states so that you can carry these products back and forth through your body. That's what they do. And that's why they're called transition metals. They transition. Right? Now, all right, let me show you the heart. All right, that's a spectacular opal heart. I believe that's from the Yoa region in Australia. It's cut in half, and originally it had been laying with this side down, that side up. And I can tell that because the plasma has risen to the top, and the metals, which are heavier, have drifted to the bottom. Now, all of these metals will try to occupy a particular type of fabric and material that is like the ventricle lining. And then you have the heartstrings, and then you have the aorta and all these different things. They're different chemistry. Now, that's my heart right there, but this is a water opal. So all of this stuff is there, but there's no metals in it to give. You just saw the transition metals, they're not there. Now this one died in a region and was protected and entombed in such a way that the transition metals were available to attach and stay there. Usually they come and go. They're always moving through the waters. But this time it just settled and settled and settled, probably like a gigantic scab. and finally it just congealed, and all the excess ran away, and everything else, the blood, turn, because you know, all of the different crystals and everything, all of these different jewels and all the stuff people have, those are all bodily fluids. People don't realize that, that's what they are. This is a fingertip. You see that? That's a fingertip. You see that right there? That's blood. That's blood running out of the artery, because that's what happens. The arteries are right at the tip, and that right there is a what do you call it? A garnet or whatever it is. But all these different crystals. This whole thing is crystal. Hold on. If I put a little water on there, you might be able to see it a little better. But you can see it really good in a microscope. But anyway, that's what happens. That's red blood. You see it dripping down. All right, that ran out the tip of the finger. And there's a little garnet there. It's probably all bashed up. It's been laying around here for many years. That's the fingertip. And in this particular condition, it turned more, this is almost like opal too. Very similar to opal. And it might be more opalized if I cut it into here. You might see a lot of these opal colors. I can't say that for a fact, but that's possible. Because there's a lot of crystal in here. You see little crystals? And then all the blood. So whatever you got on there, your little jewelry, that was made out of some kind of biology. Bodily fluids turned into nice, beautiful little stones. Okay, my friends, I showed you my heart, which is basically like this, only this still has some blood left in it, running between the ventricle walls. The black is the vein side, this is the artery side. Now, you see this is a crystal, that's how it came out of the ground as far as I know. Nobody cut this. What happens is, in certain conditions, you will get this crystal planing. And the reason for this is, you'll get a seed crystal attached to some organic molecule in there. And a seed crystal, if it's this type of crystal that has planes, it will keep growing that plane flat like that, or straight up like this, or straight over like this. The layers of molecules will just attach in these plane structures, and that's why you get all these different facets, because the planes diverge, and it happens in certain chemistry, and that's where you find your gemstones. And this is not a gemstone; it's just a water opal. But if it had a different type of pH and a different type of metals and minerals were in there, it could have easily done this. They all can do the same thing. It just depends. Like here, hold on. See this one here? I believe this is well, I'm almost 100% sure this is another heart. And that's, I believe, the aorta, and it comes down into here. And this one here was in a condition where it was only the ferrous oxides, only the red blood is right here. And this took over everything. And then you have other ones like this where they're not. This I think might be a lung, but it's almost solid blood now, and it just depends. This one here is a piece of meat. It's a piece of meat, and I mean that's absolutely a piece of meat, and it was in a condition where it allowed it to petrify just as it would if it was in your body. So it stabilized, it found the normal chemistry that it liked, and somehow it was comfortable in that configuration with that chemistry, and then once it dried out, it just continued to maintain the same colors, the same transition metals are all in the same places, collagens are still all there. And I imagine if you work the right chemistry with this, you could back all this down and get your soft tissues coming back and everything else, because that's how bodies are. They go both directions, basically, a lot of them. And that's how they dig down through the fleshy stuff and get to the bones now. They call them concretions. Like this, they would call it concretion. And they would take all this stuff away off the top, and then they'd get down to where they would see like a bone-ish looking layer, and then they'd say, oh, we're down to the bone. Well, they took off all the good stuff. I mean, well, it's like this goose head. If they would take all that stuff down, and they'd get to an area right in that area, right there, that's the neck. And there's a set of bones right here, and a bone coming down the neck or wherever it is at the top. And if they did it just right, they could use acids and salts and strip all this away and find those bones. They wouldn't look like white bones. They would look like this stuff. Only it would have the architecture of a bone structure instead of a complete head. I think the complete head is better, feathers and everything, than just going looking for bones. But that's just my attitude. Now, this is pretty spectacular, and this can happen literally to any organic material. All opals, you know, are organic, 100%. 100% are organic. Now, there was a place I came way out here, and they showed the guy was moving it around. Let's see. Let's try out here. All right. Now, he'll move it around, and we'll see, or she, or whoever it is. Isn't that something? Now, you can see right down the two ventricle walls. And then there's the darker stuff is normally going to be where your vein blood was, because that's the FeO2. It's only got 2 oxygens. The 3 has 3 oxygens, and that, I believe, was the aorta up there. And there's some of the little bloody areas inside. And again, the black is the vein blood. There's the regular red blood. So you got black, because it moves the vein and artery blood through. Isn't that something? Now, let's just hold it off here. Now, what we're looking at here, I think I've made a pretty good case for mud fossils and giants. Now, let's see how this geomorphology reacts, you know, to the statement she made about being open and wanting truth. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at this. I did send a message, and I said, would you please take a look at this? And I said, your column, your basalt is 10, and I'm interested if you are interested in the truth. Now, very rarely do I get any responses from this. She was quite vocal about being for all truth and honesty and all that. And these are, I posted also on her page, how big are the giants and tendons. And I would love to engage in with someone that really, really did want the truth. And I seen that, I don't see that too often. Well, actually, I've never seen it yet. Not anybody that would engage in their things that and allow statements to be made that contradict the statements they made, because that sort of takes away their status. They think. To me, that would give them more status to say, you know what, let's take a look at this. That's the people that are going to have a status. The people that aren't going to have any status are the people I'm going to be speaking up who they were that just ignored what was put in front of their faces. And for their own benefit is my contention. And again, I keep going down this road where it appears that I'm trying to defame people. That is not my position whatsoever. I don't want to defame anyone. I want to present something in such a manner as that they have no other way other than to respond or to defame themselves. I'm not defaming anyone. It's the lack of responses and the absolute denial and not allowing evidence to be produced, and then making statements about how they're so in favor of academic freedom and expression and looking into every little detail. This is what I want to be seen, and I hope this happens. She seems like a very legitimate person, but again, these were the statements. These were the statements. I will not be shy about my commitment to academic values. Now, what are those values? Truth, objectivity, free inquiry, and rational debate. I challenge others. Right? I challenge them. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm hoping to hear something, and again, I'm not intimidating or trying to bother anybody.